And there's so many young families.
Today we're chatting with Dan Cameron as we ride alongside him through his family's neighborhood of Old North here in London, Ontario. We focus heavily on making streets safer for vulnerable road users and speeding prevention through design, and doing so through a lens of a father trying to make streets safer for everyone, but especially his kids, who go to school in the neighborhood. But with reckless drivers making it dangerous to even walk or bike on the sidewalk, let alone in the neighborhood streets, more people drive their kids to school, which just makes what should be safe streets much less safe for everyone, compounding the problem, because even more people then decide to drive. And yes, Dan threw on a helmet for this ride because we knew that as soon as someone is seen riding a bicycle without a helmet in a video, the internet goes crazy and starts victim blaming, stating how irresponsible they are, etc., which sometimes takes away from what they are actually saying. So, look guys, he has a helmet on, woo! Now, with that preamble in mind and out of the way, I'll hand the reins over to Dan.
Welcome to our house. This is our neighborhood. There are a ton of young families that live in this neighborhood. So I could just point around and there's lots of infants, toddlers, young kids that walk to kindergarten or around the corner just down there on Adelaide Street to Arbor Glen Daycare, wonderful daycare. This is a residential neighborhood. These are people live here. It's not mixed zoning, and yet it's not safe to have our kids play on the road or bike on the road even, unless they're really old and proficient and you train them to watch for cars. So that's what we were going to chat about. That's what you heard me talking about at the meeting. And why don't we go for a ride down toward the school and I can show you some of the issues.
All right, let's do it.
Cool. So this is the summertime. So the kids are not walking to school, but if you kind of imagine that it's, 8:50 a.m. on a weekday in the fall or spring or winter, and there's just lots of children and their parents walking along both sidewalks straight down this road. They're coming in from these feeder streets and all going in one direction. There's also a lot of car traffic. People use this nice wide street, Victoria Street, as a pass-through to get between Richmond and Adelaide. And so there's commuters around that time as well. So you end up with way more cars than needed, and they're going way faster than needed at the same time that there's a whole bunch of young children and families walking. And so this mixing is not ideal. It's really a problem. I think a lot more kids would bike to school if it was safe to do so, if there weren't so many cars, if the cars weren't so fast, and maybe if the cars weren't so big as well. So we're getting to a stop sign here. This is a little intersection, Victoria and Adelaide. There's virtually nothing about to calm traffic in this intersection. There are a couple things up ahead, but one issue here is that, hey Jen, while there have been some traffic calming, look how fast these guys are going, passing us. While there's a few traffic calming things in place, a raised intersection up ahead here at Colborne, and a bump out at the intersection at Christie Street in Victoria, they're one-offs. There's nothing systematic in the neighborhood or even on this drive. So this nice wide road, cars just fly down here because a nice wide road affords that. I'm a driver as well. It's nice to drive fast. Everyone's in a rush all the time. If you have a huge straightaway that seems completely open and free and wide, of course you're going to go faster. Now this is a raised intersection. We're going to let these guys go. Sorry to make you stop with the camera there. So this raised intersection does very little. Although if you had every single raised intersection raised like that in the neighborhood, then it's much more likely to have an effect. People would get to know this is a neighborhood you can't just fly through because you're going to bottom out. People tend to go fast there. That's the busiest intersection on this little ride to school. Similarly, with this bump out just up ahead, this is a one-off, so people don't expect it. If you're not expecting this and you're flying through, then you're more likely to have to slam on the brakes to stop in time so that it's interrupting your flow when you're driving too fast. Rather than if you expect it. Everywhere in this neighborhood, it's got these bump outs, so you just have to go slower. That would be more effective. So now we're right in front of the school, this Old North School. If you imagine this time, I was saying 8:50, 8:55, this is a zoo. So let's just like do a U-turn on this street. There's no cars coming.
Give me 1 second here. Whee!
Yeah, no worries. So if this is like crawling with cars, everyone comes and they park in here, even though it says no stopping in these hours, they just ignore that. And this was originally built, they put this in here for the school buses, but people do it in addition to the school buses. There's been some attempts to kind of, keep the cars out, but then at least for periods, you've had like the principal or individual teachers that have to come out and tell people, no, you can't stop here, the bus is about to come in. The absolute priority as a community is cars. People just treat this like you can stop anywhere here. Cars are stopping with ones parked here already. At that bump out, there becomes a backup. People are making are kind of blindly passing people who've stopped abruptly in front of them to drop off their kids. Kids are walking from the other side of the road across. This is where there's a huge mixing of pedestrians, children, and cars that are going often too fast, and there's just too many of them. And although there's, like I was saying, the bump out you can see down here and the raised intersection down there, this one here is raised as well, it's not nearly enough. It's not systematic. They're just little one-offs that don't have a cumulative effect on drivers in this area. So one thing we can do about this kind of problem that's been done in other jurisdictions is something called school streets, where you simply close the street to cars at these busy pickup and drop-off times at schools. So for half an hour in the morning, in this window when it gets most busy, or even just 20 minutes. And then at the end of the day, when people are picking up their kids, you just put up a little barrier there, you put up one down at Colburn Street down there, for example, and cars can't come here. If you need to drive your kid, you just drop them off a little bit, 30 meters away, and they can walk the rest of the way. This is a realistic program, thing to implement in this neighborhood in particular. And yet we tried hard. We had a whole plan worked up with the city, a 3-week pilot project. We were partnering with the HEAL Lab, this wonderful research lab based at Western. And yet people who are fearful of the change of being not allowed to do whatever they want with their cars, is how I understand it, had pushback on this and they killed it. There were a couple people who got very opposed, and the school board and the city, I think, were worried. They didn't want parent pushback. They didn't want this to become political, and they killed the pilot project that we had. So that's unfortunate. We'll see if we can get it back going again. But it's really striking to me, in this neighborhood, it's so walkable. Every kid that goes here, save for a population that lives in the Northwest that get bused in, so many of the students here can walk in safely. They live within the distance I live. We're probably on the further end of it. And that's even if the kindergartner is walking slow, it's about 10 minutes max. If they're on their scooter, it's fast. And yet it's not safe to ride your bike, and not that many kids do it. There's also no convenient bike parking. There's a lock or a place to lock your bike on the tarmac, but not right out front. So if you want to drop a kindergartner off, for example, and lock their bike somewhere, there's nowhere to do that. So this is a part of my not quite daily, but regular life, and some of the things I've noticed about cycling and active transportation and safety and traffic.
Yeah, and it's weird because I actually went to this school before it was renamed. Yeah. And I was bused in from the Northwest area. Yeah. And so I know that well. Thing is, this right here, as you said, was for buses, right? Yeah. So like, there was one gentleman at that ward meeting that was saying, hey, I drive a bus and the vehicles, the drivers get in the way. They are in the no parking zone, no stopping zone. Yeah. And yet, so then it's affecting the actual bus loading. So it's not even like, oh, it's just like, oh, it's an annoyance. It's like, no, it's a safety concern. We already know that. Yeah. But it's also like,
no, he really captured things well. And I think he really identified the crux of the problem, which is what almost everyone can agree on who lives in a neighborhood that has too much traffic, which is every neighborhood. We have too many cars in our society, is that there's too many cars and they go too fast. And so he notices it in these school drop-off and pickup areas, because he's navigating this stuff of trying to pull in an area like this when there's cars coming in when they shouldn't, pulling out unpredictably, children suddenly walking in front. It's just like, why are we mixing so much having so much mixing of child pedestrians and 2-ton steel vehicles whipping down the road. It's insane that we do this, and there are some obvious things we can do to make systematic change in a neighborhood to calm traffic, reduce traffic, and I think it's a no-brainer. Around every school, have this no-car zone for these busy times. It's a proven method in other jurisdictions, and there's no reason we can't do it, especially in a neighborhood like this.
I'm really curious to see how, like, what the reasons were. Like, it's not, what you're proposing is not rocket science. Like, I can see the bump out. Are you saying close, like, right over there?
There was a study of this. So the city looked into, is it best to close down on Waterloo Street, which is going the other, we're on a corner here with the school, and this part of Victoria Street, or just this part? They decided to just do this part. And whether to stop at Christie Street or down to Colborne, they decided there's different ways you could do it. And almost anything is going to be better than nothing, which is what we ended up with. I also think it's like, this is quite reasonable. I think some of the feedback we got, and this is not surprising, like behavioral change is hard. I get used to doing things in a certain way, and if someone said like, actually you can't do it that way anymore, then like, yeah, there's going to be pushback. We need to persuade people, and maybe I could have done a better job of bringing people on side, and we could have as the group of us that were pushing for this. But the feedback is like, well, I dropped my kid off on my way to work. I need to drive them in the car. Or yes, but then it'll just make busy traffic in these other areas further out. And we already know about some of these things because it's been done in other jurisdictions.
Because, you know, that's what happens when you do that. There are actualities.
Well, potentially, if you just get even 10%, and this just goes not just with schools and everything, but city-wide or society-wide, even if 10% of drivers switch to walking or cycling or rolling or whatever, that makes it better for everyone. Then there's less traffic, and it's safer because there's more people doing those things and more people being seen to do those things. So it's just good for some of this to happen. It doesn't mean you can't drive your kid to school. If that's what you need to do for your family, there's all kinds of reasons you might need to, or that just makes the most sense. You just need to drop them off a little bit further away rather than right in front. And if it's going to get busier there, at least that's spread out to a much larger perimeter because people are coming from all around. You don't need to drop off right in front of the school. It's spreading out, it's diluting that traffic all around. And hopefully reducing it because people will eventually say like, well, if you're going to walk from there and we only live over there, why doesn't the kid just walk the whole way? And this is, I think, what a lot of families could do. Not all, but enough that it would make a real difference if even some of those families that could made that switch.
Yeah, and it disperses, like as you said, it disperses, but I would almost call it breathing room. It gives drivers, not everything's happening in one single spot, just a crisis zone. Yeah. Get out, quick. Okay, do you have all your stuff? Grab your, oh, you forgot your bag. Yeah. They reverse, boom. Right. Like just, it can all happen so quickly. Yeah. Meanwhile, that all won't happen because you know, okay, there's no cars in here, there's no drivers going to be doing that. So then when you do drop them off at the perimeter, you know, okay, they're safe. They're gonna get to school. I can go off to work and not even have to deal with traffic. It literally makes so much sense. It's boggling my mind that it was not, like, it's not standard.
And so, you know, we'll try again, and there's other things we can try. And what I'd like to see in the whole neighborhood, I was speaking about this at the ward meeting, is a whole neighborhood, all of Old North, put bump outs at every intersection. Make it uncomfortable for cars to drive through. If you don't already live here, make it annoying to do so. You know, put medians in where you can only turn right when you're coming off of Richmond or Adelaide or Oxford. So it's not, people don't use it as a convenient way to drive just for the sake of it. Stick to those main routes that you're supposed to be driving on, those main streets, and save these for the people that live here and to make them safer. By the way, it's not just safer for kids to be walking here, it's healthier. The local air quality in the immediate vicinity, when you don't have like 8 idling trucks right here, is way better. It's quieter. You know, if you walk around, and if we end up going on Adelaide where we walk with our youngest child to the daycare, you can't have a conversation because it's loud vehicles that are going by all the time.
It was like the perfect timing for that statement.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, you know, and there's evidence about this, that it's better for mental health if you have less noisy environment. The air quality is better. It's better for physical health if not just air quality, but if you're moving a little bit more every day. Like, we know these things. So there's, you know, no reason not to do it. There's all number of things. The active routes to school group that's run by public health has the whole, like, you know, menu of options to get more kids walking, rolling, and cycling to school. putting signage up about how far it is from the school. This is the way you should go. Trying to organize bike buses or walking school buses so that people in the neighborhood are doing this together. No one wants to just, send their tiny little kid out on their own, but we don't need to do that. We are a community. There's lots of older kids and other parents that are walking. We can walk together, we can cycle together. So there's a group of us in the community that want to do these things. We've talked about doing bike buses next year, so we hope to do some of these things. But one frustration I have is that there's no one there's no one who's in charge of this. There's no mandate that schools need to become safer in terms of traffic safety. As soon as the property ends here, this is just the city's concern at this point. When I spoke about this with school leadership, they were sympathetic. They do see it as a problem. Everyone sees it as a problem, how much traffic is here at pickup and drop off. But the principal can't say, okay, we'll just close down the street. That's not her lane. And it was actually quite a complicated process for that to happen, even from people within the city that really wanted to make this happen. Why is there not a mandate from the school board, from the trustees saying, okay, every school needs to show improvements to safety with respect to how kids are getting to and from school? That's part of the school experience. And so they need to be part of the active and safe routes to school program. Show some stepwise improvements. There's mandates about environmental health. They have to have a proper HVAC and they need to show that everything's in working order. There's mandates on inclusivity. You have to show within a school that you're including everyone and have active measures to do so. Why not do so for safe transportation? Getting to and from school should not be taking your life into your hands just because you choose to walk or cycle or roll. Okay, so when we get up to Colborne, let's turn right, go down to Cheapside, and we can take the bike lane that's on Cheapside down to Adelaide. And we'll go on the sidewalk, I think, there, and I'll show you this stretch of Adelaide even just between Cheapside and Victoria. It's just one block, but that block has a daycare. There's about, maybe 70 families that bring their kids there, from as young as 6-month-old to as old as 4. It's a wonderful daycare. Our children have both gone there. It's got a great reputation, great educators there. Oh, sorry, I said we were going to turn right, didn't I? Right. So while we're on Colborne, that wonderful, somewhat protected bike lane south of Oxford, they extended here, but it's not protected. So there's nothing up this far, but up until Cheapside, there's a painted lane. Maybe it's better than nothing. The evidence is that, it can improve the flow, but it does not improve safety for anyone. Drivers, cyclists, pedestrians. I would not bring my children on a painted lane, my young children on a painted lane on Colborne Street on their own bikes. It's way too unsafe.
Do you happen to have a cargo bike?
We don't. We're in the discussion of which one to get.
That's all it's a big one. It's like a second car.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we only have one car, so we don't have this benefit of selling a car so we're going to turn left here. We don't have the benefit of selling a car to justify the cost of an expensive new e-cargo bike, but I think we need to get one.
Question.
Yeah.
Thoughts on the bike boxes? You have 5 seconds of talking for this.
I'm in one now. I don't know. It's fine. Bike infrastructure, anything they're doing is better than nothing. It's such a shame that they design things not in a great way, and then it seems like it's almost designed to fail. I think we don't have a cycling culture, and I know the city has done some educational efforts so that people know how to use the boxes and how to turn. But I don't think we don't have enough people using them. They're too fragmented, this whole system. There's not a culture of knowing how to use them. And so, it is what it is. So if you can imagine, this is supposed to be one of the kind of main streets in the neighborhood for traffic to get through. Imagine riding with, say, a 5-year-old who's quite competent on a bike, with cars going as close to me as these ones are at the speeds they're going. It's completely unrealistic. So this cycling infrastructure does not pass the AAA standards. It's not accessible. It's not for all ages. This is something for people who are already comfortable cycling to make it somewhat more straightforward, that cars are more likely to expect that they're going to be here, and that white line shows you where the division is. We get these potholes in the gutter, and the cars get the main part of the road. But in terms of this being, again, a residential neighborhood, there's very little mixed zoning around here. This is a bus route. A residential neighborhood, but you can't, and there's so many young families. So many young families around here, but kids can learn to ride bikes quite young. It's a great way for them to get around. It's a lot faster than dragging them when they want to stop and look at every little stick and stone. But this is like ridiculous that you would bring a young child on this bike lane here. So this is one of the few examples where we restrict access to some parts of the neighborhood or one intersection. You can't go straight through. That makes that street much less busy. There's been a version of that infrastructure for some years now. And overall, it's popular. I think some people find that it may cause accidents because people aren't expecting and they're not sure what to do, or they try to make a U-turn. But overall, like further down at Oxford and William, it's something to slow the rate at which people just say, oh, I'll just cut right in here and quickly bypass all this traffic and get to where I want to go. So let's just cut left here. Let's go, actually, I lied. I said we were going to go from Cheapside to Victoria, but now we're on Logan Street. We're going to go back up to Victoria, and then I want to take you and show you the sidewalk at Adelaide Street.
Was there a reason for you not going all the way over to Adelaide? Why didn't we turn left on Adelaide?
It's uncomfortable to do so. I wanted to, the thing I want to show you, the daycare is on the west side, so it would have been like, okay, make the left turn onto the east side of Adelaide and then find a way to cross over. And it's just an unpleasant intersection. Adelaide is just unpleasant overall. And it's one of the nearby roads in our neighborhood. So we're back onto Victoria. There's a car coming behind you, but...
Noted.
So, we're like half a block from Adelaide Street, which, people treat it like a highway in terms of the speeds they go at.
It kind of boxes you in.
Yep. And yet this is where we walk our toddlers. I've been making this walk, every weekday for 5 years. There's no chance I would take a young child on I'm going to stop here for a sec. There's no chance I would bring, abrupt stop. Sure, I want to point some things out here. So I've been coming down this road, sometimes on a bike with a kid on the back or in a trailer behind me, or walking, or mostly the kid on a scooter the last while. And we come down our, not quiet enough, but relatively quiet compared to Adelaide Street, Victoria Street here. Look at this sidewalk here. It slopes directly into what? A truck going, way too fast. This is deadly. This is a deadly situation. Imagine you're not just a small child on something that rolls, where if you lose control, where are you going to end up? What if you're an elderly person with mobility issues and you spill here? This gets so gritty. Look at all this sand and dirt here. This slopes both ways right into Adelaide. I mean, how can this be the acceptable design of infrastructure in a residential neighborhood where people live, where we're walking our young children half a block, 100 meters up here to get to the daycare? It's unacceptable. A nice thing in our neighborhood is the bakery right here. So across the street, tourists. It's popular. People like to go there. I get my hair cut just over here. You take your life into your hands when you need to cross this street. Or you inconveniently, because, in car culture, the cars get the priority, inconveniently, we need to walk way up to Cheapside, walk all the way back, or way up to Regent and all the way back. Or you wait for a gap in traffic and you run across. And we do that. And we do that with our kids sometimes. And you hold their hands tightly and you wait till it's a good size gap. Why is that the way we're doing things? Why is that what we're encouraging with the way we've designed infrastructure? Now, Sam Trossow, our counselor, he's proud that one of the few infrastructure things he's had gotten through that has been passed is to get a crosswalk here. One with blinking yellow lights. So pedestrians press the button, it blinks yellow, and then cars in theory will stop and you go across. I worry that it won't be sufficient, that it in fact could be more dangerous because people go so fast, especially at rush hour, that if they're not expecting it in daylight hours, which is rush hour, you can't see those blinking red lights very much, or blinking yellow lights. And so people are gonna think it's safe to cross, and then there'll be someone slamming on the brakes, getting rear-ended, or they don't see them at all and fly through. So we'll see how it goes. It's supposed to be built in the next year or so, I hope. But I worry that it's, again, piecemeal, this tiny little thing that will be insufficient, especially on its own, where the culture and the affordance of how we built this road and the infrastructure is for cars to fly up and down here. This is intended for cars to be going so fast, and yet we want to make this a livable neighborhood. It's not working, and it doesn't mix those two visions. So I want to go up this sidewalk and show you just this little stretch.
Yeah. What would be your preference right here? What would be the best solution?
Well, part of it, when they put in this crosswalk, Sam has been good on this, that this needs to be, this isn't up to standards, this intersection, so it needs to be level. But if, like, given the fact that this is a residential neighborhood and people are using this to walk to the bakery, to the grocery store right there, around this corner to daycare, why not have it oriented and prioritizing pedestrians? Raise the whole intersection so that it's level as you go across, easy to stop in time, and you can turn here. Why not have a street light where there's a big red light that forces, or cars are used to stopping for? There's all kinds of things you could change here to improve it, and just making it, I think it's the way people are thinking about it. So focusing on the experience of the pedestrian. Hey Kate, how are you doing? Another Arbor Glen parent with great thoughts about how unsafe this sidewalk is. Ben's doing a podcast on cycling and traffic safety and transportation stuff. Kate Graham is, well, many things, and an exceptional person, but a neighborhood parent and a daycare parent, so she knows of what I speak.
Yeah, I'm glad you're talking about this.
Yeah.
That's good. I will get out of your way.
No worries. Nice to see you.
Sorry to interrupt you.
But I think, like, that's representative. There's like, this is a neighborhood. We know each other. Our small kids know each other. People walk here. Look how unpleasant this is. It's hard to hear each other. Just standing this close to Adelaide, it's unsafe if you're coming here with your child. You need to really be, my daughter who still comes here, she knows if she's riding her scooter, she gets off there and she walks it at the high part of this sidewalk around here so that there's as little chance as possible that she slips and ends up in traffic. And it's like, why are we have to go to these lengths to keep our kids safe rather than inconveniencing cars? We prioritize cars at all stops, and it's frustrating to me. So, I don't know if I interrupted a thought you were trying to get me toward earlier.
Right, so yeah, what would be the ideal?
Yeah, I think a level intersection where it's raised for traffic so it's more inconvenient for them and safer for people to be walking across here, and then a street light, like there is at Regent, to press a button and then you get a red light. I think that will be more effective at stopping and making it, stopping traffic and making it safer for pedestrians to get across. And it's just like, I really am baffled by like all these families walking, like a 2-year-old or a 1.5-year-old walking along this intersection with people flying by on Adelaide Street and up here. There's 2 sections along here where within a month span there were huge tire tracks where cars had gone off the road. There's accidents here regularly. The people who run the bakery were telling me about this. Up at Huron, it's even worse. Like, this is not safe overall, and it's not pleasant, it's not healthy for individuals, mentally, physically, it's not healthy for society. Why are we not making where we live, at least, more pleasant and easy to walk, to ride our bikes, to be outside, to be together, and not in a car-dominated environment? It's crazy. And this is not rush hour. This is not particularly busy on Adelaide.
Yeah, this is on a, what are we, Sunday, Saturday?
So this is a walk I've been doing for years with small children from 6-month-olds up until 4-year-olds. Tire tracks coming off here are not uncommon sight. There might even be some remnants of some in this stretch here, which is crazy. It feels like we're playing with fire, and it's only a matter of time before there's a tragedy. And in fact, these kinds of tragedies with children getting hit and killed by cars are not infrequently in the news. It was just a few months ago that I believe an 8-year-old right in front of a school was hit and killed in Hamilton. And it's a tragedy. So this is Arbor Glen Day Nursery, just a wonderful institution for young children. It's so important for the families that bring their kids here, for our society to have good education for young children, and yet you're taking your child's life into your hands just to walk them there. Across here, this kind of strip mall and a metro grocery store. Lots of people in the neighborhood will just drive to the grocery store rather than walk because it's so unpleasant to cross Adelaide, so unsafe to do so. I'm having to shout to hear my own voice over the car noise here. All right, so I'm going to turn right onto the bike lane here. This was a really great example. You can see the remnants of the old line where a painted bike lane on Cheapside, when it crossed Adelaide here, just kind of ran into the sidewalk and ended there. And it's just this really captures how little thought or care we've put into good quality cycling infrastructure. All right, so let's turn back onto Logan. And we're back into a little bit quieter, although you're never far from the car noise here. Yeah. So that's been a little tour of the kid-oriented trips I take in the neighborhood, how it intersects with bikes and with traffic and safety, and why I'm frustrated about it.
That all makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting because it's in such just a few blocks. It's just like, hey, if you need to drive elsewhere, that can be okay, but within a neighborhood, you shouldn't be forced to add to traffic, pretty much, which adds then to the danger and then forces everyone to drive.
No, we've got these feedback loops. Like we own a car. A car is a wonderful tool. It's really useful for a lot of things. Our overuse of it in society is such a problem. You shouldn't need it to go pick up milk. A car. This is what a waste of energy, and I mean, it's ridiculous if you stop and think about it.